Okay, I'm not sure if anybody can hear me or see me. I'm actually waiting for Kevin to appear. We've had more than a few technical problems this evening so far. Hopefully, this is the end of them, although I'm not that confident. So, is there anybody out there? Ah, somebody is. Kevin wants to be in. Yes, yes, please. What do I need to do? Add. Invite.
Hey, there we go.
Hi. Good to see you, mate.
Good to see you as well. So it gave me this error that I had to rotate my phone, but when I did, it worked. So that's the
Uh-huh.
good.
Can you
So
hear me?
what's that?
Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you perfectly.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm
another.
not. I'm not sure what happened. It was. It was. I just kept rolling the phone round and round and round, and wasn't getting the desired result. So complete
Yeah,
reboot.
it's always a bit finicky when we do these videos. So thank you for having the patience to help us make it work. So.
No, not at all. I just automatically assumed it was me.
Nope, I blame it on Facebook. They're the cause of all the
Yeah,
evil in
let's
the
do
world.
that.
So.
That's a good idea.
So anyway, it looks like we've got plenty of people that are joining us since they've all been waiting patiently for us.
Hi,
Well,
everybody. Sorry for the delay.
welcome to this month's Undead Head-to-Head interview, where I will be interviewing Chris Artinian, the author of the Safe Haven series of books. Chris is also the winner of the 2017 Best New Author of the Year from the Reanimated Writers fan group. He won the November 2017 Zombie Book of the Month Club, and he was also winner of Good Morning Zompok's Best Series of 2017. So that's a lot of awards for your first year, Chris. Congrats.
Thank you very much, mate. Thank you.
So, these interviews are very informal, given both the technological challenges that we have and just the nature in general. It's just mainly us chatting about your books and getting to know you.
Okay.
And I've got a list of questions I'm going to go through, but then as we start to get questions from the viewers, we'll try and answer those so that they can enjoy getting their questions answered as well. I assume you can see everybody that's popping in there. If you want to say hi to anybody, feel free.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. We've got Sylvester, Lisa, Julianne, Marie so far. Thanks very much for joining. My beloved wife.
And so now your series, from what I can tell, it deals with the dead in a different kind of way. What I gather is that the zombie apocalypse is happening, but it's not necessarily out of control. They have preventative measures that they're able to put into place to prevent the outbreaks from getting out of control. They have the reanimation prevention kits. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, that's right. This is in the first book. The reanimation virus has kind of swept over the planet, and the last areas that it's not infected fully have been Britain and Ireland. So it's everywhere, but there are still some areas that are putting up a fight. But the last two unaffected areas are Britain and Ireland, and they put measures into place to try and ensure that the infection doesn't reach these shores. It doesn't work. It comes close, but it doesn't work. There are a couple of outbreaks, and then everything goes to hell, as you would expect with a Zompok. But yeah, the government, uh, the prime minister, if I remember, was quite dashing. Um, but yeah, what they did, rather than centralize things when things went wrong, rather than get people into hospitals, rather than get them into all these camps, what they tended to do was treat people in their own homes. So they came up with these kits, and these phone lines. We have a National Health Service over here, and we've got lots of National Health Service phone lines, and they kind of came up with these numbers to help in case, you know, people got infected, or there are different levels of infection. There are bites, which are more or less instant death and reanimation, and then there are scratches. Now, the scratches we found in the first book, more often than not, resulted in death, but there were the very odd instances where people actually came back to life, you know, normal life, not dead life. And those people could potentially have had in their bloodstream a cure for the virus, but everything started going to hell very quickly, and they weren't able to get a cure. But anyway, the scratch victims, they were looked after in the family home. And the story that we follow, Mike and his family, that's one such story. The father, the stepfather, he is a scratch victim, and he goes into a coma, and he ends up coming back as a RAM. RAM is the term that's used for reanimated body. He kind of tries to attack the family, and that's where we start the story, really. But one of the things that they have in place, because he's a scratch victim, they were issued with reanimation prevention equipment, which is basically a type of a balloon that's put around the head of the potential zombie. And at the point that they lose consciousness and they're about to reanimate, there's like this plunger. It's all a sealed unit. There's a plunger. They plunge it into the person's eye, and that kind of removes any possibility of them coming back as a RAM. So this equipment was issued to all these households. There's no way that blood can leak out of it or anything like that. So there's no bodily fluids that can infect anybody else. So the government came up with all these measures, and they came up with financial measures as well. And they decided to conscript people who were between the ages of 16 and 40 to serve in the military. Anyone between the ages of 41 and 65, they'd go to work in like utility industries, down the coal mine, textile industries, all this kind of stuff. So the government actually brought in all these measures to try and stave off the infection, to try and keep the economy going as well, to make sure that people could still get their rations and all this kind of thing. Because effectively, we were in a state of war, albeit a little bit different to the usual war we'd expect to be in. The government were actually quite forward thinking, but in the end, it didn't quite work out.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned when you were describing that, you said that some scratch victims will turn, but not all, or do all of them turn?
Yeah, the majority of the scratch victims will turn. But what I think, if memory serves, it's 3 books ago now, I think I said something along the lines of there had been cases where the person had actually come back to life. So it's a very, very tiny percentage. But those people, obviously, they may well carry the cure inside them, but everything went to hell, and they never got the chance to actually develop that.
Gotcha. Okay. So now you touched on the fact that you call them rams and not zombies. Any particular story behind that?
Well, yeah, when I came up with the idea, I always see zombies as slow moving. When somebody talks about I feel like a zombie, they're not talking about running down the street wanting to attack somebody and tear them apart and bite into their neck. They're usually talking about feeling quite lethargic and slow, and so that's how I see a zombie. So to call these things zombies, I think it'd be quite inaccurate, because I mean they're very fast, they're very vicious, they're pretty unrelenting. So strictly speaking, although it's the dead coming back to life, then they're not what I'd view as zombies. There's something a little more a little more vicious, a little more unnerving. mind you saying that, zombies would be quite unnerving if one came to knock on my door. But these guys, they're fast, and they're pretty feral, rabid,
vicious. So now
yes.
your storyline revolves around Mike Fletcher and his family. So for
Yep.
anybody who hasn't read the books yet, what's the gist of their storyline?
Right. Well, basically, it's Mike and his sister Emma are left to look after the younger siblings, Sammy and Jake. Mike's stepfather, Alex, is the one who's the scratch victim, and that's really where we start the story. Alex is in bed; he's gone into a coma, and they're hoping he'll wake up normally, but the chances are good that he'll actually turn into a ram, and that does happen. So then Mike has to put him down, and I try to do it all as realistically as possible. I want them to feel the conflict in doing something like that, because hopefully it's a situation none of us will ever have to face. But ultimately his stepfather has just gone into a coma and died, and his stepfather's come back to life, and he's got to separate in his head that that's not actually his stepfather anymore, and it's coming to terms with the guilt of having to kill somebody who'd become incredibly close to him, and weighing that up against protecting the family, because Mike's a family man. He's all about family. And his sister, who he's gone through hell with previously because they had an abusive father, and his younger siblings, who he absolutely adores, they're his focus, and he'd do anything to protect them. But Alex was more like a father to him than his real father ever was. He'd become his best friend, and this guy who he loved had just died in front of him, and now he's coming back to life trying to attack him. And it's a mixture of feelings. On the one hand, you don't want him to get anywhere near the family. On the other hand, you want to think maybe he is in there somewhere. So that's where we start the story, and ultimately it is all about family. Right through the books, it's all about what you wouldn't do for your family. And I think one of the taglines I've used, and it's very true, is the greatest weapon is the will to do anything for the ones you love. Or there's been a few of them actually, but it's basically, it doesn't matter what the odds are. You will do anything to fight for your family. You'll do anything to fight for the people you love, and that's the whole focus of what the story is about.
Okay. So now book 2 picks up with after all of the civilizations have fallen. And what's the general storyline of book 2 and the new world order that they're dealing with?
Well, book 2, it's called Realm of the Raiders, and it's quite familiar territory. I mean, when you think that vicious reanimated corpses are going to be your worst enemy. It turns out that mankind is. And you know, there are these bandits who well-organized criminal gangs who go around just out for themselves, out to enslave the weak, take what they can, and you know, that's probably what would happen in an event like that. So the goodies, not only have they got the rams to fight, they've got raiders to fight as well. And there's there I don't want to give too much away, just in case there are people who haven't read it. And you're battling the reanimated corpses, you're battling the raiders, but then you've got good people who are trying to make decisions, and they don't always make the right decisions. So, you know, they flounder on that front as well. And you've got some good people who make bad decisions and end up, you know, causing real problems for other good people. And it's just all about being human. You know, I mean, people do make bad decisions that have bad effects for others, but they're not necessarily bad people. And it's all about human, you know, human frailty. And Mike is a very black and white character. He doesn't believe in shades of grey. He is somebody, you know, you're either his friend or his enemy. There's nothing in between. And you're either good or evil. You're either black or white. There's nothing in between with Mike. So he is essentially a good man, but he's got a very, very short temper, and he has some anger management issues. It's difficult to describe. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he's a good guy, with anger management issues. But he does kind of lose it on occasions, like when he set the guy alight and things like that.
Wow.
But that was in the first book. In fairness, he didn't set anybody on fire in the second, I don't think. No, he didn't.
It's not a trend that he's
sorry, mate, I missed that.
I said it's not a trend that he's trying to start.
No. I think I think he was just bored that day. No, he like I say, he's somebody who sees things black and white. Mike had been sent away to an offenders institute when he was a little younger for going to town on a priest. It was a priest who had upset his little sister, and he kind of laid into him a bit, and he got put away in a young offenders institute, and he met some really horrific people there. And he learned a lot about human nature, and that's when he kind of really turned to somebody who believed in there is no gray, it's all black and white. And that's really when you understand what he went through, you understand why he is like he is. And when he comes up against these guys in book one, he knows for a fact that they're not going to be impressed by words, they're going to be impressed by actions. And these are particularly unpleasant people who've done some horrific things. And he knows that just talking to them proves nothing. So he thinks of the most horrific act he can perform, does it to one of them, and he literally just sets this guy alight while the other two watch. Wow. And then he knows that he'll get whatever he wants from the other two, because they'll just be reduced to jelly. So yeah, I mean, he's not somebody to be trifled with, but essentially he is a good guy.
Right on. So now I know from our earlier conversation that book 3 is written, that it's in the hands of your beta reader. In fact, I saw a post early this morning something to the effect of OMG from her, but she couldn't share any details, and I won't ask you to give out any information, but when do you expect that to hit the shelves?
Right. Well, I was speaking to my editor a couple of days ago, and she's got her calendar pretty much clear after the end of this week. I'm hoping to have all the bits and pieces done that I need to do by the end of this week, then hand it over to her. I don't see any reason why it's not going to be March. The earlier in March, the better. But everything that all the information I'm getting back from my beta is good. It's all positive. I mean, it sounds funny, but Tina, she's she's somebody who will not pull any punches. She'll tell me exactly what she thinks, which is just what you want. You don't want somebody sugarcoating anything when you're having something beta read. And it would be so easy for her in her position to say, oh yeah, that's a lovely story, then it's great, you've got nothing to worry about and all that kind of thing, because obviously it's not just we're a family unit as well as a partnership in every sense of the word. I mean, this writing thing, yeah, I do the writing, but she does so much for me. She supports me so much. It is a team as far as I'm concerned, and the last thing you want is acrimony. And I remember the first book, it was the first time I'd written anything longer than a short story, and she was very positive all the way through. I didn't let her read anything, but she was positive about the process, because I'd written, I'm digressing a little bit, I tend to do this. I'd written a film script a few months previously, and it was the first full-length thing I'd ever done, and she loved it. And so when I started writing a novel, she was like over the moon. And when I handed the complete novel to her, she says it's absolutely fantastic. She absolutely loved it, but there were a few points. And that's the first time I'd ever started thinking of writing as a process. I thought, right, I've written my novel, that's great, let's go sell 1 million copies of it. But I handed it to her, and she says, there's a few things that I noticed. And then this 320 odd page stack of paper came back with so many underlines and like little side notes and like red crossings out and no. And I thought, oh my God, I have no future as a writer at all. This is terrible. But that really is all part of the process. And it was the best thing that could have happened, because I remember we were talking about it the other day, actually, because obviously I've handed book 3 to her now, and she's like reading through it, and she's coming up with suggestions and that kind of thing. And I know now it's all part of the process, and it's not a big deal, and I actually want that. But back then, all I wanted was praise. All I wanted was for her to say, yeah, that's the best thing I've ever read. And it didn't register with me that what would make it a better novel is actually getting another perspective. And I remember getting that manuscript back, and I remember I was actually making dinner just after I'd like looked at the corrections, and we'd had this discussion, and I was making it in silence, and I was just so hacked off. I was actually thinking about just throwing in the towel there and then. And she kept going, but it's a really good book. But it's a really good book. And I just got it into my head that I couldn't write, and it was awful. And all these corrections, everybody would be just laughing at me when I brought it out. But no, it is all part of the process. And you know, you do start to realize that. And the thing is, the more you write, the less silly mistakes you make. And I notice that every time I write something now, I make far fewer mistakes than I did the time before. And, you know, anything that's picked out, I'm over the moon that it's picked out, because you know, that just saves my editor finding it instead. So yeah, book 3 is being beta read, and I'm hoping mid to late March for the release date.
Okay. And do you soon?
Sorry, mate, you broke up then. Could you repeat that?
A cover, and will it be revealed soon?
No, I don't have a cover as yet. I spoke to Dean Samed, and he said that he'd be happy to do the cover. I do like Dean's work. I think it's phenomenal. But I've been very lucky. I've worked with a couple of great artists already. Christian Bentulin, who obviously you'll know, very talented guy. And the guy who did the first cover, and I've just had a kind of reissue of book 1 to celebrate a year. He did the cover for that as well. A gentleman called Jake Caleb, and he is a phenomenal artist, very, very gifted. And they're both lovely guys. Not worked with Dean yet, but I've been very impressed by all the work I've seen, and I am looking forward to working with him.
Yeah, he does some good stuff. He's done my last 2 covers, and I love them. They're great. So you'll enjoy the results that he puts out. So I love your writing style. It's very descriptive. I love the pictures that you paint with your words. Is there any tips for authors that you have to share about the writing process?
Well, I mean, it's very difficult for me. When I write, I know a lot of people write and they see it as it appears on a screen, as if they're describing a film, or they're writing as if they're writing a film. When I write, I actually write from the perspective of the character. So when I'm writing a scene for Mike, I'm actually writing from Mike's point of view. When I'm writing a scene for Emma, I'm writing from Emma's point of view. And the description and the narrative, often it can be influenced by the back of the scene that I've just written. I mean, it sounds a little weird, but if I can liken it to maybe acting, like when you get a method actor, they get inside the person's head and they act as if they were that person. So I try and do the same. I try and write as if I'm that person. And like I say, if I come off the back of a scene that I've just been writing about Mike, I might still be in that frame of mind when I'm doing the other stuff to piece the scene together. So it's quite organic how it happens, but I don't have any, I mean, I love language. I love using, probably a little bit too much. I love using long words sometimes to describe scenes. Yeah, I get a lot of those crossed out by Tina. But yes, I mean, I do love writing. I do love being able to put a little bit of poetry in it if I can here and there, but sometimes it's not really appropriate. I don't go into something thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to describe this room in like 3 or 4 pages, and I'm going to go into finite detail, and I'm going to I want to use this word or that word. It's however it catches you at the time. And like I say, often it's influenced by whatever scene I've just written and whatever character's head I've just been in.
Gotcha. Okay. So now will book 3 be the final book in the series?
Book 3 is the final book in the trilogy. What I'm hoping to do is actually do more trilogies using Safe Haven, using these characters. I mean, one of the things, I mean, Reanimated Writers actually has a part to play in this, because when we did Undead Worlds, and part of it was my story was from Lucy's point of view. It was like a little offshoot story. It made me realize that they are multi-dimensional, these characters. They've all got parts to play, and you know, it each of them could carry a story themselves. So yeah, I love these characters. I'm not going to get rid of them anytime soon. So this book that's coming out, Reap of the Righteous, it's the end of this trilogy. It's the last one in this trilogy, and it will kind of draw a line underneath this series of events. But there are going to be more Safe Haven books.
Okay, good. But they'll deal with different characters than not necessarily just Mike and his family.
That's right. That's right. But they'll probably feature in them quite heavily as well.
Okay, gotcha. So now you mentioned Undead Worlds. I know you were also in a number of other anthologies. I believe you were in the Tales from the Zombie Road anthology.
That's right. Yeah.
Treasured Chests, and any others?
That's correct. No, it's those three so far.
Okay.
I mean, I really enjoyed writing for all of them. They were each a different experience. I mean, the thing I did for Treasured Chests was a little bit more lighthearted than anything else I'd done. The Zombie Road, it wasn't Safe Haven, but I really enjoyed writing about different characters, and I really it was just a nice little break. Although it was still zombies, and it was fast moving zombies, it was nice just to go somewhere else. You know, the main character, and that was a fairly old, grizzled character, and he was like battle hardened, and I enjoyed writing him. It was a different perspective. There was possibly a little bit more humor in it than most of Safe Haven. But yeah, it was nice just to do something a little different.
Gotcha.
And obviously Undead Worlds, that was part of the Safe Haven thing anyway.
Gotcha. So I've got a couple of more questions, but I'm going to throw it out to our viewers. If anybody out there does have a question, please post those in the comments so we can get those to Christopher before we close out the Undead head-to-head. One of the things I've noticed about you is you have a very active fan club, which is really great to see. How have the fans impacted you and your writing and just your experience as an author?
Well, the fan club is absolutely incredible. I've got such amazing people in there. Well, I'm saying I've got nothing to do with it. they joined. You know, I'm very, very fortunate that they're very positive. They give me so much encouragement. They're such nice people as well. They're really, really lovely. I mean, when we get somebody new coming on board, you know, they're falling over themselves to say hello to them, to welcome them. You know, there's no, you get some fan clubs and some people get ideas above their station and this kind of thing, and there's backbiting, and there's absolutely none of that. It's a really nice place to be. And I run regular competitions and that kind of thing, and they can win a few pieces of swag, and it's all just a bit of fun, but they really enter into the spirit of it. And I've got some, you know, I've made some really lovely friends. And you know, there are people I know who will always comment on things, and they'll always have a laugh with myself and Tina. You know, there's one of them here, Marie Crooks. My God, she's trouble. See, this is a problem with Yorkshire women. And you get more than one together, and they're an absolute nightmare. They're just all band against you. And it doesn't matter that it's my fan club. It may as well be theirs, because they'll just, you know, they plot in secret against me. Well, in fact, it's not always in secret. I did a live thing a while back, and well, they were coming up with ideas to how to get me out of the room. They were talking about putting laxatives in my drink. One of them was talking about poisoning me, for God's sake.
Wow.
But I know they don't mean it. At least I hope they don't. But no, it's a brilliant place to be. There's always something going on there, and they are lovely people. I'm very, very lucky to well, I'm lucky to be a part of that group. And the fact that it's in my name is just, you know, that's just a bonus. But it's a really nice group to be a part of. They are very active. They're very supportive. They're very intelligent as well. I mean, and they're very creative people. And when you start finding out a little more about them, it's amazing, you know, the depth of history, of what they've done and what they do. And, you know, you find some of the most amazing things out, and people are willing to share in that group, and it's lovely. You know, they talk about you know, what attributes they bring to a group if the Zompok occurred, and you find out that these people, you know, some of them are nurses, some of them can, you know, knit, some of them can sew in their sleep, and you find out these personal things and career things about people just from asking a fun question to win a bit of swag. And, you know, it's amazing the variation in people's backgrounds, in people's jobs, yet they all kind of like the Zompok genre and the post-apocalyptic genre. I mean, it sounds like I'm over enthusing about it, but it's just, I really, really love that group. It's a fantastic place to be. It's a lovely, friendly place to be. And I just feel so, I use this word a lot, but it really is true. I do feel humbled that it's in my name.
Beautiful. So we did have a couple of questions come in. First one, I'll give you this one first. It's an easy one from Julian Sangdon. Girl with all the gifts, yay or nay?
Sorry.
He asks, Girl with All the Gifts, the movie, I think it was also a book as well. Yes or no? Did you like it or not?
I have yet to see it, would you believe?
Oh, okay.
I was going to watch it when it came on one of the channels I subscribed to. And I forgot, and I haven't been able to get to it since. But I fully intend to, because Glenn Close is in it, isn't she? And I absolutely love Glenn Close.
Yeah. So I'll say for myself, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good movie. So I think you will too.
I look forward to watching it. I look forward.
Sylvester.
From Sylvester. Okay. You're right, mate.
So we got a bit of a lag. So Sylvester asks, any plans to step away from zombies in future projects?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, like I said, I'm going to keep up with Safe Haven because I really love the characters and all that kind of thing, and I love zombies, and I love post-apocalyptic fiction in general. I mean, I'm a huge fan. Swan Song by Robert McCammon, my favorite book ever. It's just a wonderful book. But then I'm into people like John Christopher, The Death of Grass, World in Winter, John Wyndham, Day of the Triffids, I Am Legend, Richard Matheson, you know, The Stand, obviously, you can't forget about The Stand, the Hunger Games stuff. There are literally hundreds of amazing post-apocalyptic stories out there. And I'd love to write some different types of post-apocalyptic stuff. I mean, John Christopher, I mentioned him. He actually made a career of it. He wrote very little other than post-apocalyptic stuff, and it was all different scenarios. I think my favorite of his is The Death of Grass. I think that's just genius. But yeah, I'd like to write different post-apocalyptic scenarios. But I I mentioned earlier on that I'd written a film script. It was a few years back now, and I'd like to do a novelization of that because the story was pretty good, and I really liked the characters as well, and I think I could develop them a little further. Now
Was that
that
post?
wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was horror. It was set on a it was set on a small Scottish island, and it was about these religious nut jobs who worshipped these creatures that lived on the other side of the island, and it was fast moving. It was kind of a high octane thing, and I really enjoyed writing it. And like I say, if I gave that a proper treatment, I could develop those characters a bit more. But just after I'd finished book 2, yeah, because book 1 and book 2 of Safe Haven were actually written a long time ago, and there was a big gap between me just doing anything with them and starting book 3. But in between that, I actually started writing a thriller. It was like a crime thriller. I didn't get that far into it, but the ideas started to flow okay. And it was interesting because, yeah, when you start a different genre, you do actually have to start thinking slightly differently. And it was nice to think outside of the Zompok. It just, you know, what would this character do in this situation? And rarely did it involve setting somebody on fire. Yeah, it was nice just to try to do something a little different. So I haven't ruled anything out. I really haven't ruled anything out, but I might have a little bit of a gap in between book 3 and doing the next Safe Haven, unless all of a sudden I get inspired and come up with another trilogy like that. But I might do the I might do the film script novelization because, like I say, I really did enjoy that, and I really enjoyed writing those characters, albeit in a shorter form. Because obviously, you write a 2-hour film script, and it's only 120 pages, and you'd struggle to get away with that as a novel.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so we got another question. We got an inappropriate type question from Joan McLeod. And then we've got a more appropriate question from Julian Saindon. He asks if you have a day job.
I do. I work in aviation security.
Aviation security, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
So fairly long hours, and it's quite responsible. You can be, I mean, because of where I live as well. Obviously, I live the arse end of nowhere, I believe the term is. It's like a 50-mile round trip, and when you're starting very early in the morning, I mean, when I'm in a long stretch of shifts, I sometimes I have to get up at 4 o'clock and before, and then I'm not going to bed until 10:30, 11 o'clock sometimes, because there's the journey on top of it. But the days are roughly about 13 hours, unless you get a delay. If you get a delay, then that just adds an awful lot to your day. So yeah, it's a day. It's kind of a day-night job by the time it's done.
Gotcha. Marie Crooks asks, why did you move to where you live now?
It was the Yorkshire women. I just desperately needed to get away from that place because they were making my life a living hell. And then it turns out that they still follow me up here. No, really, it was a different way of life. I mean, we'd lived in cities. We'd lived in cities all our lives, and we wanted to do something different. We wanted to focus more on living life rather than rather than, you know, living to work. It hasn't quite worked out that way yet because we're working harder than we've ever worked. But yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful place. There's virtually no crime here, which you know, I mean, I can walk down. It's not really a street. I can walk down the lane. I live out in the sticks at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I don't have to worry about, you know, some gang being on a corner or some madman being behind me. You know, I'm literally by myself out here, which is wonderful. And you know, we've got a beach just around the corner from the house, which is amazing. It's not so amazing when you've got 110-mile-an-hour winds, but in summer, you know, just being able to go down the hill and go onto the beach, it's quite spectacular. You know, knowing that there's nothing in between you and America but sea. It's quite awe-inspiring. So yeah, I mean, it's a lovely place to live. It's got pros and cons. You know, I mean, if there are certain things we want, we have to order them online because you're not going to get them in such a small place. But I mean, you know, you really don't have to worry about, you know, who's waiting for you around the corner or anything like that. It's a lovely, safe place to live. It's very laid back. You know, it's a very sorry, mate.
I said it's your very own safe haven.
Well, yeah, it is. It is, yeah, very, very much so. It is a lovely place and a safe place to live.
So Alina asks, who would you pick to play Mike in a movie if you could pick the actor?
Well, that's a good question, actually. I mean, the problem is Mike's very young. I mean, he's only 21, so I don't know of any 21-year-old actors. I mean, maybe I don't know how old Freddie Highmore is now. You know, Freddie Highmore from Bates Motel. Yeah. I'm not quite sure how old he is, but he might be a good guy. He's a phenomenal actor, is the lad. I'm sure he could play any role he wanted. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that many young actors. So that's a tough one. Some of the other characters, they might be easier to cast. But Mike could be a toughie with him being just you know, a bairn by my standards.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I think we're about ready to wrap it up. If I don't see any other questions pop up, is there anything else that you want the viewers to know?
No, I'd like to thank everybody who's tuned in this evening. It's been a real privilege to be a part of this. I want to thank you, Kevin, because you've been fantastic, helping me through all the technical difficulties and the sound check last week and all that kind of thing. It's been lovely talking to you, mate. Like I say, Safe Haven 3 should be out in March, barring any disasters. If you haven't read Safe Havens 1 and 2, they're available at 99 pence for one more day on Kindle. So grab yourself a bargain while you can. Yes, and that's pretty much it. I really, really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure. When you hit end on the video, make sure you have it post to the group so that people that weren't able to attend it live can watch it throughout the week, and other people can get to know you, and then get out there and buy your book and check out Safe Haven. Thank you, Christopher.
No, thank you, mate. Take care of yourself.
You too.